The Israeli military's effort to hunt down militants intensified Monday, and Israel's prime minister promised to defeat them forcefully as the death toll on both sides from the three-day war rose above 1,200, including at least 9 Americans. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant ordered a complete siege on Gaza, pledging to cut electricity and cut off food and fuel into the impoverished home to more than 2 million Palestinians. The Israeli military, which called up 300,000 reservists, pounded Gaza with an aerial assault aimed at halting Hamas rockets targeting Israel's border towns. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking to local leaders in the towns bordering Gaza, said his government would leave no stone unturned to help them. Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh said there were massacres taking place and entire families wiped out in Gaza, and more than 100,000 have been displaced. He again blamed Israel for the war, claiming years of occupation and aggression. Israeli Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the military has taken full control of communities bordering Gaza and that only sporadic fighting was ongoing. The death tolls includes more than 700 in Israel and more than 500 in Gaza, the mostly impoverished home to 2.3 million Palestinians. Militant groups claim to hold more than 100 people kidnapped from Israel. Hamas also claimed that 4 hostages were killed by Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli Health Ministry said more than 2,500 people were wounded in the attacks in Israel. Palestinian authorities estimated a similar number of injured in Gaza. Hamas said that militants are holding about 130 hostages, but said an update on the number would be released Monday. Abdel Latif Al-Qanoua, a spokesman for the militant group, said Hamas demands that all Palestinians held in Israeli prisons be released. Israel said it was not involved in negotiations aimed at securing the release of any hostages. Egyptian authorities were trying to arrange a deal to secure the release of Palestinian women and children prisoners held in Israeli custody in exchange for Hamas releasing Israeli civilian women who were taken captive since the violence began. The Egyptian government is presently awaiting responses from both parties regarding the proposed prisoners' exchange and a temporary ceasefire. The Gaza Ministry of Public Works and Housing estimated that about 160 housing units have been destroyed and 1,210 severely damaged. The UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, said 137,000 people are being sheltered in over 70 UN schools in Gaza. The United Nations Humanitarian Affairs Office said Israeli strikes have targeted houses and apartment buildings in Gaza, sometimes without warning for residents to evacuate. 4 large residential towers with multiple floors of residential units in Gaza City were completely destroyed. U.S. airlines have suspended flights to and from Tel Aviv amid the ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine. The State Department issued travel advisories for the region, urging increased caution for American citizens headed to Israel and the West Bank, and suggesting not to travel to Gaza. The Pentagon has sent its newest aircraft carrier steaming toward the troubled waters of the Middle East in a show of force that is meant to reassure Israel and other U.S. allies and to deter adversaries such as Iran from seeking to take advantage of the conflict. The USS Gerald Ford, on its first combat deployment, leads a strike group that includes several destroyers and cruisers staffed by 6,000 sailors. Hamas was founded in 1987 during the first Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. The group's charter calls for establishment of an Islamic Palestinian state that would replace the current state of Israel. The Israeli military estimated 1,000 Hamas fighters crashed across the Israeli border Saturday, igniting a rampage that included shooting hundreds of civilians and kidnapping people who were transported back to Gaza. The dispute is rooted in pre-biblical times. Though its borders have shifted over the years, Palestinian territories used to be what is now Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. Both Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs' history, culture, and identity are linked to the Palestinian territories. As the number of Jewish immigrants increased, many Palestinians were displaced. They began pushing back and violence resulted. In 1948, the Jewish People's Council met in Tel Aviv and established the State of Israel. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky compared Hamas to Russian leaders, calling their terrorism the same evil. Zelensky, addressing the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, said the only difference was Israel's attacker is a terrorist organization while Ukraine was attacked by a terrorist state.